The alien woman thought she could captivate him with her art of seduction. The human man responded with his own wild pace. Zephyra adjusted the curve of her lip in the reflection of the chromaglass wall. Subtle, just a hint of mystery. Not too much. She wasn't baiting a Veylan prince at a harvest ball. This was for a human, a male. Primitive, statistically impulsive, biologically weak to symmetrical faces and high-arched brows. She gave herself a silent nod, touched the nape of her neck where the neural lace glowed faintly beneath her skin, then turned on her heel, her boots clicking with practiced grace. The docking terminal of orbital platform Juno 3 bustled with chaos, as it always did before a summit. Delegations swirled around like confused swarms of jewel-toned insects. Zephyra drifted through it with the ease of someone trained to move through fire without catching flame. Her ears twitched once, instinctive, hidden beneath a carefully engineered mane of violet-black waves. A private alert in her earpiece. Subject approaching. Human male. Height 1 Kade Ren. Alert. Flirtation patterns unpredictable. Warning. Sarcasm probability 97%. She spotted him before the scan could finish. Kade Ren, leaning against the handrail of the gravity lift like it owed him rent. His shirt was unbuttoned at the collar. His hair, short, dark, unbothered by styling agents, managed to look both rebellious and annoyingly effective. He chewed a stim gum and watched a pair of insectoid diplomats argue over boarding passes. I expected a dozen guards and a robe of holographic arrogance, he said as she stepped into his orbit. Instead, I get, what? A space elf on Casual Friday? She didn't blink. I was told humans find familiarity comforting. I selected a form that would reduce your instinct to panic. Comforting? He raised an eyebrow. Lady, you look like the cover of an intergalactic fantasy novel. If I start panicking, it won't be because I'm afraid. She tilted her head. That was almost clever. I'm warming up. He popped the stim gum. Give me 5 minutes and a drink. You'll have a briefing instead. The summit begins in 16 hours. And what's your role? Are you here to kill me if I say the wrong thing, or just seduce me until I sign the right one? Yes, she said. He stared, then laughed. Okay, that's a little hot. They walked together to the diplomatic wing, passing under banners bearing the 12-star crest of the Interplanetary Accord. He matched her stride despite the fact that she floated a few centimeters off the ground. She noticed. He also noticed that she noticed. Neither commented. So how many people have you successfully seduced into galactic cooperation? He asked, tapping the key panel to the conference wing. 14, she said, and 2 planetary dictators who abdicated for reasons they claimed were purely personal. Impressive, he said. I once convinced a Martian customs officer that my hoverboard was a religious artifact. Zephyra offered a polite smile, though it felt unnatural. How very spiritual. Blessed be the wheelie gods, he said solemnly, making the sign of a halo over his head. In the private lounge, lights dimmed automatically to match her biometric preferences. He made a show of squinting. You like it dark in here, huh? Lower lighting facilitates vulnerability, she said. Also, it highlights my cheekbones. That's actually fair. She handed him a dossier laced with mild neurostim inks. He didn't even flinch as the chemical codes attempted to imprint core talking points into his prefrontal cortex. Most humans experience mild euphoria, she said, watching. I eat cafeteria meatballs and watch horror comedies from Pluto's cable archives. Your little info dust doesn't even make top 10. Unfortunate, she replied, though something flickered in her chest. Interest? Irritation? She wasn't sure. She wasn't used to being unsure. He leaned back, letting the stim twine of data settle in his memory. So, you charm me, I lose focus. We accidentally on purpose become something inappropriate, and then my superiors get mad while yours feign shock. That's one possible trajectory, she said. What's another? I decide you're too erratic and unworthy. I manipulate your assistant instead. She seems orderly, he barked a laugh. You met Tulla? She once broke a touchpad because it didn't sort files alphabetically. Good luck with that. Zephyra leaned forward slightly, testing. Then perhaps you're the only viable target. Oh no, he said, mock horror, trapped in your laser web of desire. She arched a brow. Do all humans perform constant verbal satire? No, just the charming ones. The moment stretched, then shattered with a beep from the lounge AI. Scheduled integration exercise, diplomatic familiarity protocol level 2. Ah, Zephyra said, the bonding simulation. Kade stood, stretching. Does this involve trust falls? No, it involves damn. His eyes lit up with something that terrified her more than any political weapon. Joy. You're kidding. I never kid. Fantastic. Hope you're ready for some vintage Earth moves. She frowned. Your species' dances are largely incoherent limb spasms with no central rhythm. That's not wrong, he admitted, but you've never seen the Ren special. The what? He tapped the control panel. Lights dimmed further. Music began, something with bass too aggressive for peacekeeping, and vocals that suggested the singer was either in love or being chased. Kade launched into a shimmy. She stared. That is an attack. This is seduction, he countered, executing what might have been a moonwalk, then a pirouette that ended in finger guns. You're alarming. And yet you're still watching. She stepped into the rhythm, not because she wanted to, she told herself, but because it was tactically useful. She mirrored his ridiculous movements, refining them, blending Veylan grace into human absurdity. Somewhere between a spin and a body roll, they locked eyes again. This time, neither looked away. I thought this would be easier, she said, breathless but amused. I thought you'd be scarier. I can be. Then scare me, he said, grinning. She did, not with threat or poison or seduction scripts, just by laughing, truly laughing, for the first time in a very long time. And that terrified her far more than he ever could. Zephyra stood in front of the mirrored wall of her quarters, attempting to recalibrate her emotional response through a guided breathing protocol. The system displayed a neutral green hue, indicating her vitals were within acceptable parameters, but the subtle flicker along her temporal lobe sensor told a different story. Something was wrong. Not dangerously wrong, just inconveniently human. Emotional inconsistency detected, the AI intoned. She ignored it. Instead, she focused on the simulation cube in her palm, rotating the holographic projection of Kade's file. It was supposed to help her anticipate behavioral anomalies. It wasn't helping. The cube displayed a series of statistical models, none of which included spontaneous breakdancing, sarcasm deployed as emotional armor, or a fondness for tiny space animal memes. She'd caught him earlier watching a 10-minute loop of a duck-like creature in a space helmet tripping over itself on a lunar surface. It's a metaphor, he had said solemnly, for planetary politics. She hadn't laughed, not out loud. Her left ear had twitched, though. That was damning enough. A chime signaled an incoming visitor. She authorized access with a blink. The door slid open. Kade leaned against the frame, balancing a small tray containing 2 steaming cups. Peace offering, he said. One for you, one for me. Guess which is spiked with illegal Martian sugar drops? She raised an eyebrow. That substance causes moderate hallucinations. Exactly. Makes the briefing slides more fun. She took the cup anyway, sipping cautiously. It was too sweet, but not a rare act of restraint or strategy. Is this part of your attempt to undermine my emotional defenses? He smirked. Is it working? Marginally. My amusement index rose by 0.4%. Better than 0. I'll take it. They sat, not across from each other but adjacent, close enough for shoulders to brush if they shifted slightly, far enough to pretend they weren't aware of it. I read the updated agenda, he said. We're both presenting at tomorrow's cultural protocol session. Correct. I will be demonstrating the Veylan greeting ritual. Let me guess, he said. 18 fluid gestures, a whispered vowel, and a strategic ankle reveal. 14 gestures. No vowels. And the ankle is optional. Scandalous. She sipped again. The silence stretched, but not uncomfortably. She found that strange. Silence usually indicated either power dynamics or pending betrayal. With Kade, it often just meant his brain was rewiring a bad idea into a worse one. I've been thinking, he's seeing this whole professional diplomatic partnership thing wrong. Wrong how? Well, we're acting like this is a chess game, but I've seen you dance, and I'm pretty sure you'd beat me at every board game and most forms of emotional manipulation. So I'm switching tactics. She narrowed her eyes. To what? Chaos. She blinked. That explains your wardrobe. Thank you, I think. He stood, walked to her desk, and picked up the Neuroflux stylus she used for precision negotiation mapping. Then, with a completely straight face, he drew a mustache on his own reflection in the polished chrome. Explain the strategic function of that action, she said. Distraction, he said. You were annoyed. Now you're confused and mildly entertained. Result, improved mood. Also, that's a very flattering mustache. She didn't smile, but her lips fought it. Bad sign. Very bad. They spent the next hour preparing for the summit, albeit loosely. Kade pretended to study the linguistic nuances of Veylan diplomatic phrasing, but got distracted halfway through and started rewriting sections in the style of Earth Noir fiction. She walked in like a solar flare in stilettos, he read aloud. Tell me that wouldn't make negotiations more fun. I'll pretend I didn't hear that, she said, though the corner of her mouth betrayed her. Later, during an official ambassadorial dinner, they were seated opposite each other between a Venusian mining lord and a sentient plant being from Gliese. Zephyra maintained composure. Kade, however, kept nudging the table interface to send her customized menu suggestions. One simply read, deep-fried trust issues. She sent one back, sautéed arrogance on a bed of smug. Their mutual amusement spiraled until the Glesian requested silence for its photosynthetic prayer cycle. Zephyra closed her eyes, not in prayer, but to suppress laughter. It was becoming a problem. After the event, they walked side by side through the station's central promenade, where zero-gravity fountains danced in slow, luminescent arcs. Kade tossed a coin into the airlock water feature. What was that for? She asked. Tradition. You throw a coin, make a wish. Primitive. You don't do wishes on Veylan? We build what we want. No need to wish. Maybe that's why you all seem so tense. She didn't answer. They paused near the observation dome, stars sprawling across the dark in a curtain of fire and ice. Zephyra looked at them, then at Kade, who was watching her instead. You're different than I expected, she said quietly. I get that a lot. No, you're. She hesitated. Her translator stalled as if struggling to find the right human word. Unpatterned. He tilted his head. That's either an insult or the best compliment I've ever gotten. Time will tell. The lights dimmed slightly in the dome, signaling station curfew. She made no move to leave. Neither did he. He reached out, touched the edge of her. Do you know what's funny? He asked. I have limited experience with humor. Explain. I came here thinking I'd be wrangling diplomats and dodging assassins, but somehow my biggest problem is figuring out how not to fall for a woman who thinks sarcasm is a threat assessment. She opened her mouth to reply. No words came out. See? He said, unpatterned. She stepped back, not far, just enough to catch her breath. This cannot interfere with the mission, she said. He nodded. It won't. It already is. He didn't argue. He just said, well, good thing I brought backup coins. Then he tossed another one into the fountain behind them. She didn't ask what he wished for. She didn't need to. Does your species have a protocol for when a diplomatic simulation goes off script due to flirtation-induced neurosis? Zephyra's voice was calm, but her ears twitched slightly. A micro-expression. One the Veylan Council would have flagged as emotional bleed. She stood perfectly upright in the mock conference room, arms folded behind her back, watching as Kade tried and failed to activate the simulation table without triggering the soundboard of a 20th century human karaoke subroutine. I mean, Kade said, pressing random buttons until the holographic minister of Hydranus began singing I Will Survive in 6-part harmony. If it helps, I'm only like 38% flirtation-induced neurosis. The rest is pure improvisational genius. You just crashed a Class B diplomatic training environment, Zephyra said. Technically, the singing minister crashed it. I merely liberated him. From what? Emotional repression, he said. Also, the playlist was garbage. She reset the system with a blink, clearing the holograms. The room faded from a projected galactic council chamber back into a white cube. Blank slate, clean slate. She wished her thoughts could be reset as easily. Kade sat cross-legged on the floor now, inspecting a training sphere that blinked red with disapproval every time he tried to guess its password. You do know it's voice-activated, Zephyra said. I was testing its reaction to sarcasm. And? It rolled away. It's a diplomatic assistant drone, not a therapist. Could have fooled me. I've dated less responsive people. She sat beside him, not because she wanted to, because she was observing him for behavioral analysis. Yes, analysis. Tactical. He rolled the drone back. It chirped. He chirped back. What are you doing? She asked. Bonding. That's not how Veylan bonding works. Well, maybe the drone's part human now. It doesn't even have a cortex. Neither did my last roommate. She still managed to teach me how to make lunar chili. Zephyra blinked. Is that a euphemism? I really wish it were. No, actual chili. It caught fire, twice. She sighed and leaned back against the wall. He mirrored her instinctively. What happens after this summit, he asked. We assess outcomes, calculate alliance probabilities, prepare follow-ups, standard procedure. No, I mean us. There is no us. Oof, cold. You asked? I did. He turned the drone over in his hands. Still, be nice if there was something. Zephyra hesitated for a beat. Then something like diplomatic cooperation? Sure. Or shared chili recipes. She almost laughed. Almost. Instead, she said, you're aware that even if this were something, cross-species relations are complex. Says the woman trained to seduce emperors. That was a tactical class. I graduated top of it. Not surprised. You sound smug. I'm just impressed I've survived this long without being turned into a diplomatic cautionary tale. Give it time. They left the cube and walked the corridor leading toward the translator calibration lab. Lights pulsed above them in low blue waves, part of the station's circadian simulation. To a human, it would suggest early evening. To a Veylan, it implied courtship hour. She tried not to think about that. Kade predictably picked up on it anyway. So, is it true Veylans get romantic around blue lighting? I thought you didn't study the cultural packet. I didn't. Tulla did. She sent me the cliff notes, also a color-coded chart titled How Not to Accidentally Propose. She is frighteningly competent. She's also convinced you're secretly evaluating me for a joint diplomatic placement. Zephyra paused. I was. Was? Am. He whistled. So how am I doing? You disrupted a Class B simulation. You mocked a delegate's ceremonial headwear. You bribed a translation AI with digital candy. In my defense, he said, the AI initiated the barter. And yet, she tilted her head, your impact index is unusually high. Delegates remember you. They're more relaxed after speaking with you, less guarded. My charm weaponized for good, he said, dramatically flexing a non-existent bicep. Don't do that. Noted. In the calibration's later core hovered between glass panels, its internal logic sequences swirling like a hurricane made of light and probability. Kade approached it, hands behind his back, imitating a museum tour guide. Behold, he said, the alien Rosetta Stone, now featuring a sassy mode if you input 3 wrong phrases in a row. You tested that, didn't you? Twice. It called me a sentient noise complaint. Accurate. They synced their neural tags to the translator. As the machine read their shared linguistic profile, a new calibration test began. This one designed to predict communication compatibility across species lines. Kade glanced at the display. So, this test is like the diplomatic version of a dating app? In function, not intent. The readout began streaming results in real time. Category by category, empathy resonance 91%, humor compatibility 94%, conflict mitigation potential 88%, subliminal trust markers 97%. Zephyra stared. That can't be accurate. Kade just leaned closer to the display. Look at that. We're basically a power couple. Statistical anomalies are common. It means nothing. Sure, tell that to the machine that's currently trying to play us romantic music. Soft strings began filtering into the lab. The translator had triggered its protocol for high compatibility pairings. The melody was strangely reminiscent of 21st century Earth ballads, except played backward and in 7 tones only Veylans could hear. I will dismantle this machine, Zephyra said. Kade stepped back, hands raised. Whoa, don't get murdery, it's probably just lonely. It's a logic matrix. Everyone gets lonely sometimes, she looked at him. He wasn't joking, not entirely. You're deflecting again, she said. I'm a professional. Deflection is how I stay emotionally unscrambled. That's not sustainable. Neither is pretending we don't work well together. She opened her mouth, then stopped. The translator core spun slowly, reflecting their faces in fractured light. I need to prepare for the delegation mixer, she said finally. He nodded. Cool. I'll go not practice my speech. You'll improvise again. It's called playing to my strengths. She walked to the exit, then turned. For what it's worth, your emotional deflection has a rhythm. That good or bad, depends on the dance partner. And then she was gone. Kade stood alone in the lab, surrounded by lights and numbers and the faint sound of a machine trying very hard to hum a love song. He shook his head, then spoke to the translator. Okay, fine, he said. Play the sassy mode. The machine chirped, then said, in an exact imitation of Zephyra's voice, Oh look, it's the human again, here to make statistically terrible decisions. Kade laughed. Yeah, but sometimes those are the best kind. Zephyra stared at her own reflection in the polished obsidian paneling of her quarters, adjusting the ceremonial crests on her shoulders for the fourth time. The crests blinked gently, cycling through honor code affirmations in High Veylan. One of them glitched and displayed a phrase that roughly translated to, "May your diplomacy be less awkward than your last date." She sighed. "Wardrobe sentiment sensors malfunctioning again," she muttered. "I heard that," came Kade's voice through the comm. She didn't jump. She'd locked the channel 10 minutes ago, knowing he'd crack it open just for fun or sabotage, or both. "Shouldn't you be polishing your shoes and practicing not smirking during alien toast rituals?" "I'm in the middle of smirking practice right now," he said. "Also, no shoes. I'm going rogue. Sandals." "Sandals?" "Psychological warfare. No one expects toes at a summit." She blinked slowly. "You are single-handedly redefining what the interstellar code of formality considers an incident." "I aim to please," he said. "Also, is your crest flashing awkward date again?" "I installed a translation subroutine." "Uninstall it," she said. "No can do. It's my only joy." She muted him. 5 minutes later, they stood side by side outside the summit chamber, Kade wearing precisely tailored diplomatic garb, except for the sandals. Zephyra tried not to look. His feet were expressive. Somehow even his toes looked smug. The chamber doors slid open with a soft chime, revealing the full diplomatic assembly, Hydran emissaries shimmering like molten mirrors, Glacian plant scholars rooted into nutrient chairs, and the massive cube-shaped ambassadors from Tech 9, whose vocal range required a small translator choir to follow them around humming their intent. Zephyra entered with poise and purpose. Kade entered with his hands in his pockets and a casual nod to the nearest cube being. The Tech 9 ambassador bellow hummed a tone that rattled several glasses. The translator choir chirped in unison. "The human appears relaxed, suspicious. We are intrigued." Zephyra whispered through clenched teeth. "Why are they intrigued?" "Probably because I winked at the choir." "You winked at a telepathic ambassador's translator choir." "They started it. One of them made jazz hands." She opened her mouth to argue, but the Hydran delegate took the floor. It extended 4 elegant limbs and initiated the opening of truth, a ritual designed to expose hidden motives and draw raw emotion from those present. Everyone prepared. Zephyra controlled her breathing. Kade reached for a snack bar in his inner jacket pocket. "What are you doing?" she hissed. "Low blood sugar. Truth hits harder on an empty stomach." The chamber dimmed as the Hydran's aura expanded. Pulses of light crossed the table. Delegates opened their minds. Some reluctantly, some with ceremony. Zephyra steeled herself. Kade looked up mid-chew. A wave of emotional transparency hit like an invisible storm. Images flickered in the air. Memories, intentions, flashes of guilt and fear and Zephyra felt her own thoughts tugged upward, exposed, refracted. Then something unusual happened. Instead of her meticulously prepared diplomatic goals, the field manifested a brief image of Kade, laughing, shirt stained from chili, offering her a spoonful with complete innocence. She froze. Next to her, Kade's image popped into the field too. But it wasn't her. It was the vending machine, a broken one he'd yelled at for 6 minutes during their first week. She turned to him. "Seriously? I panicked," he whispered. "I didn't know they'd show memories. The machine betrayed me. That was a formative trauma." The delegates were silent. Then the Tech 9 ambassador resonated again. Translator choir, "The human projects sincerity through absurd memory, unexpected honesty. We approve." The Hydran bowed slightly. "Such disarmed authenticity is rare," it said. Zephyra gave Kade a side glance that translated to, "I will find you, even in the afterlife." He nodded subtly, "Worth it." After the ritual, smaller breakout sessions began. Delegates mingled. Zephyra approached the Glacian pair, trying to reinforce their shared agricultural interests. Kade was drawn away by a group of Martian terraforming economists who mostly wanted to hear about the time he'd been stranded in an artificial rainforest for 3 days with a malfunctioning mosquito replication drone. "I named them," he was saying. The worst one was Jeff. Zephyra tried to focus on trade route benefits and seed-sharing projections, but her mind kept drifting. Not to diplomatic strategies, to laughter, to sandals, to the way Kade had looked at her right before the Hydran truth surge, like he knew exactly what the field might reveal, and didn't care. Later, they reconvened near the panoramic star dome, watching a stream of transport vessels arc past like glowing threads in the dark. "Well," Kade said, "that went better than I expected. You compared a major interspecies ritual to vending machine betrayal. You stood in your ridiculousness. Same thing sometimes." She paused. "They liked it." "I know. Scary, right?" She considered him. "Do you sabotage everything with humor?" He shrugged. "Some people build walls. I build punchlines. Defense mechanism." "Yup. Effective." "Also yup." She didn't speak for a moment. "Then what would happen if you stopped deflecting?" "You'd probably kiss me," he said, "and then we'd both have to file a dozen forms about interspecies protocol breaches." She arched an eyebrow. "Don't tempt me. I have a form pre-filled." "Oh, I know," he said. "You're the kind of person who pre-fills flirtation denial forms just in case you need them later. It's efficient. It's adorable." She turned to the stars again. "Tomorrow, everything shifts. The Alliance Charter votes, the real politics begin. Scared? Prepared. Same thing sometimes." She glanced at him, this time letting the pause linger. "There's still time for one more mistake tonight." He looked back. "I specialize in those." They didn't move. Not yet. But something between them had already tipped forward, slow and steady, like gravity deciding it was done waiting. Behind them, the station's systems announced curfew in 6 languages. The Tech-9 choir hummed a bedtime chord, and still, neither of them moved. Kade woke up to a coffee pot explosion. Not metaphorically, literally. The station's beverage synthesizer had interpreted extra strong as a personal challenge, and was now spewing caffeinated foam across the prep chamber like it owed someone a vendetta. He blinked at the mess, ran a hand through his hair, and muttered, "I liked you better when you were passive-aggressive, not homicidal." Behind him, Zephyra's voice came through the comm. "The charter vote starts in 38 minutes. Are you going to show up smelling like scorched caffeine molecules?" "I call it ode to near-death productivity. It's very in this season. Please wear shoes today. You're stifling my innovation." Consider it preemptive diplomacy. Kade sighed, grabbed a towel, and decided to skip his usual breakfast lecture from the culinary AI, which had been passive-aggressively playing sad violins ever since he tried to microwave a protein wrap in a hyperspectral scanner. When he arrived at the main forum, fully dressed, including shoes barely, he found the mood heavy. Delegates stood in clusters, whispering across species lines. The Glesian ambassador appeared to be photosynthesizing stress. One of the hydrants had compacted into a meditative puddle, and the Tech-9 choir was humming something suspiciously close to funeral jazz. He spotted Zephyra already in position near the central dais, ears twitching in the way he now recognized as both alert and mildly annoyed. She didn't turn, but said, "You're late." "I was negotiating a peace treaty between my espresso and my eyebrows. I lost." "You'll survive. Statistically, I only need to survive 1 more hour. That's not ominous at all." The final charter summit began with the ceremonial activation of the core vote relay, a crystalline structure that read each delegate's biometric signature, translated it into intent vectors, and projected the unified outcome. A lot of blinking lights and slow musical hums. Kade nodded respectfully and whispered, "Still think it looks like a disco ball with anxiety." Zephyra elbowed him. The votes began, slowly, carefully, with deliberate rituals unique to each species. Kade waited, fidgeted, thought about snack bars, wondered if he could launch one discreetly across the room using only telekinesis and guilt. Then the unexpected happened, again. Midway through the vote, the core relay pulsed red, a warning signal. The hum stopped. A low chime rang out, station-wide. Everyone froze. The relay blinked a message in Galactic Standard. Discrepancy detected. Emotional data overlap. Zephyra stiffened. That's impossible. Emotional data streams are anonymized. Kade leaned over. Unless someone's emotional projection is not so anonymous. She turned to him slowly. "What did you do?" "Okay," he said, "before you say anything, in my defense, I didn't mean to bond with the vote relay." "You emotionally compromised the diplomatic vote relay?" "I might have touched it and thought about things." She stared. "Like you," he said. "A little." The room was silent. Then a translator drone buzzed and chirped out, "Human subject registered 96% emotional attachment to Veylan envoy. Detected as potential conflict of interest. Protocol requires clarification." Zephyra's face didn't change. Her ears did. Slight twitch. That same flicker he'd seen back in the training room. She stepped forward. To clarify, she said loudly, the Veylan envoy is also emotionally compromised. 93%, we round up. The room buzzed. The hydrants lit up in blue admiration. The Tech-9s rumbled with cautious delight. The Glysians very slowly began budding a small new leaf. Kade blinked. Did you just publicly neutralize your stupidity? Yes. I meant, yes, she said more softly now. That too. He opened his mouth again, closed it, then grinned. So this means we don't get disqualified? No, it means the vote proceeds with full transparency, and we have to file 16 emotional conflict forms. Romantic or tactical? Both. The core relay recalibrated and continued the vote. Final tallies appeared. Unity Charter, passed. 300 years of debate resolved in a half-second of trust. Delegates exhaled. The Tech-9 choir hummed a victory lullaby. The hydran puddle reconstituted into a polite standing shape. The Glycian leaf waved gently in the simulated breeze. Kade leaned toward Zephyra. You ever think about what comes after this? She looked at him. I've considered several options. Avoiding you was one. Filing complaints. Starting an interstellar chili restaurant named Emotional Deflection with Extra Spice. Catchy. She tilted her head. Or maybe something simpler. Like staying? Like learning what happens when I don't run first. They stood together, watching as the delegates embraced, shook tendrils, or exchanged bioluminescent blushes. The galaxy wasn't fixed, but it was a little closer to whole. Later, as the summit lights dimmed and the music played low, Kade found her again near the observation window. This time, he brought a peace offering. 2 snacks, wrapped in biodegradable foil, flavor unknown. She took one, sniffed it. This might kill us. Only one way to find out. They bit, chewed, winced. Chilly, she said. Definitely not metaphorical. He smiled. Still worth it. She didn't smile, not exactly. But her ears twitched again, and this time it was unmistakable. Contentment. Don't get used to this, she said. Already did? She leaned against his shoulder, and they watched the stars like 2 diplomats who'd accidentally saved the galaxy and started something much more dangerous. Something that didn't need translation.